Today I'm here in the Eastwood garage with something a little bit different, our first 3D printer. Let's walk through the assembly and get started by unboxing it and laying the components out. First, we want to verify all of our components are present as listed in the instruction manual. We'll begin with the base assembly and check all 3 sets of pre-installed screws. Take the included hex key and make sure they're snug. Loose screws could cause some shifting during the prints, but we do not want to over-tighten them because the frame is aluminum, so the threads could strip out easily. Let's flip it over and adjust the roller tension on the y-axis. The eccentric nuts are simply adjusted with the included flat wrench. Rotate them around and you'll feel when there is no pressure and when there is too much. I start with no pressure and spin it around until it's coming back in. Feeling with my fingertips, I stop when it has just enough grip to pull the bed around. With that one good, I'll adjust the other one the same way. There should be no slop in the roller assembly, but it should roll smoothly. I've got the uprights and M5 by 45 screws ready to go on the base. The screw packages have the size printed on them for easy identification. Make note, the uprights are not the same and the orientation is important because one upright has holes to mount the Z-axis stepper motor. This upright needs to be installed on the left side of the machine with the holes on the bottom. The right upright has holes as well, but they are not used so the orientation does not matter. Now the easiest way to put these on is to flip the base on its side, hold one piece in place, thread the screws in, flip, then repeat on the other side. Leave the screws just loose enough that the uprights can slide for adjustment later. Next we need the extruder and the X-axis stepper assembly and the Z-axis roller. Roll these onto the left and right uprights respectively. Adjust the tension on the rollers in the same fashion as on the Y-axis earlier, then remove for assembly. We need the X-axis beam, 2 M4 by 16 screws, and the extruder and the X-axis assembly. The beam has one counterbore at each end. First we need the side with the counterbore to the inside of the mounting holes. This counterbore will slip right over the nut holding this roller in, and then we can thread the 2 screws in from the back. Get the plate relatively parallel and flush with the beam, then snug the screws down. Again, these are aluminum and be careful not to strip the threads. Pull the X-axis belt onto the beam and feed it around the pulley to the underside. Roll the hot end assembly onto the beam with the nozzle pointing downward. Adjust the roller tension with the same method as before and then slip the belt into the retention slot. Now we can take the Z-axis roller and put it on the other side of the beam. Install one M4 by 16 screw in the innermost mount hole. Let's set this aside for a moment and grab the X-axis belt tensioner. Note the orientation because this can only go on one way. I like to set it how it will be installed with the counterbore mount facing outward. Remove the adjustment nut and pull the roller out. Keep the roller in that orientation and line it up with the beam. Feed the belt through and loop it into the other belt retention slot on the bottom side of the hot end. Now we can slip the tensioner housing back on and thread the nut on. Install the remaining M4 by 16 screw on the back side. Again, try to line up the plate parallel and straight with the beam and carefully tighten them down. Install the M4 by 14 flathead screw into the counterbore hole on the front side. This only needs to be lightly tightened. Over-tightening this can very easily crack the plastic. Spin the tensioner nut in until there is a medium tension in the belt. Too much tension will wear the belt out quickly. Adjust the tension on the Y-axis belt in the same manner. The completed X-axis and extruder assembly can now be rolled onto the uprights and gently rested onto the print bed. Install the upright brace, again leaving the screws loose for adjustment. Install end caps over the sharp exposed aluminum. Now the uprights can be tightened. Start with the bottom screws and snug them up. Again, remembering these are aluminum. Tighten them uniformly to avoid tweaking these uprights. Lift the gantry up so we can tighten the top screws. Here's a tech tip. Take one of the hex keys that you aren't using and wedge it up in the roller to hold the gantry up while you snug these screws. Now I'm going to leave the gantry up there for later. Next, I need the Z-axis stepper motor and the 2 M4 by 18 flathead screws to install it. I like to leave these screws loose. Loosen the 2 pre-installed screws and loosen the top collar screw so I can get a perfect alignment for the next step, which is dropping the lead screw in. I'll take the lead screw and feed it through the brass bushing down into the collar. Notice how I slid it in perfectly. My goal is to try and keep it that way so it isn't binding at all. After tightening the mount screw some, I'll check again if it still slides freely in this collar. If it does, snug it up and tighten the top collar as well to lock it in. If it doesn't, a really small piece of shim stock or even several layers of folder paper will come in handy to shim it out. First, try installing them here because that will usually do the trick. If not, you can place them behind the other mount screws to get it shimmed the way you need it to be. Now that it's all good, I can remove the Allen key and our Z-axis rotates smooth. Now let's get all the electrical stuff sorted out. They're all labeled, so just go through plugging away. I will also install the PTFE tube fitting to the extruder assembly and connect the feed tube. We can then install the filament spool holder to the top of the machine. The Z-axis limit switch can be installed to the side and connected. Leave this loose and we'll fine-tune its position in the next video. We'll install the control panel next. The easiest way to do this is to slide the screen out from the mount, install the mount to the side of the machine, plug it in, and reinstall the screen. Last step, I always like to take that included zip tie and tidy up the wiring so it has a lower chance of snagging. And just like that, you've assembled your first 3D printer. See our next videos to dial in the nozzle height, level the bed, load some filament, and print a part. If you want more information on this tool, we got plenty of other videos on our YouTube channel, or you can head over to eastwood.com to find out more information.